Fire up your Friday
Fired Up Friday
with Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
I am Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
Over the next hour of this Master Connection series, we will take a deep dive into the different ways to connect and network effectively.
See us and hear us right now. So LinkedIn, we are on here. We're getting ready.
Hear from experts along with Steve Spiro, who went from being shy and introverted to the Master Connector.
All right, everybody, this is it. This is the Master Connection series. I am so excited to get into it today. Make sure that you're liking, sharing, shouting out your city and state. We want your questions. We want your comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so excited to get into introducing our guests. Make sure that you're hitting the thumbs up button, the clappy emoji, the support button, the heart button, the insightful button, the curious button. We want to see it all. We have an amazing panel for you. Mr. Steve Spiro, our Master Connector, is in here. We're ready. He's fired up for Fired Up Friday. Great talk on the sandwich technique that we posted earlier. And I'm going to get right into our introductions here. So Steve Spiro is a martial arts black belt and a master networker. He has moved from being a shy, introverted kid to the master connector he is today. Steve Spiro is a certified customer communications consultant with Quadient, where he consults and mentors companies to help them find more effective ways to connect with their customers. Steve Spiro believes in the power of mentorship, growing oneself through self-development and continuing to create meaningful connections through building a large network. Welcome to the stage, the Master Connector himself, Steve Spiro.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. My co-host here, the man, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. So, hey, folks, Steve Spiro, the Master Connector. Cameron and I really appreciate you tuning in. Every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, we come at you with engaging content on how you, too, can be a Master Connector. During this Master Connection series, each week, our goal is to gather subject matter experts, like you see here, to impart their wisdom on us. Welcome to the show. I'm very blessed to have my co-host, Cameron Toth. Cameron is the host and founder of BizDev Live. Cameron Toth founded Toth Event Staffing in 2011. Toth Event Staffing is a hospitality company providing staff to caterers, cafeterias, and catering departments in Westchester, New York, and New York City. BizDev Live was founded in 2020. BizDev Live takes Cameron's entrepreneurship experience and combines it with his passion for helping young people and business-minded professionals. Cameron Toth's mission in life is increasing access to education and opportunity for all people. So please bring back to the stage my man, the wizard behind the stage, Mr. Cameron Toth.
Thank you, Steve. I think we got Mama Spiro in the house checking in. I want to encourage everybody, let us know where we were viewing from. Even if you told us before, we always like hearing it. Going to get right into introducing our guest. Thanks for the fabulous introduction, Mr. Steve Spiro. We're going to go over to Ashley Owens. Here we go. Ashley Owens. My branding here. Ashley Owens is the first and only networking concierge that puts you in the right situation or gets you out of the wrong one. As a networking concierge, she trains, coaches, and speaks on becoming an authority at generating revenue by networking with intention. As a networking concierge, Ashley is a host of 2 digital TV talk shows on RBN TV and This Is It TV, speaking and interviewing on the topic of tactical networking. She has taken over 700 introduction phone calls with business professionals looking to grow their network and has given close to 1,000 introductions. She has spoken to over 80 networking groups, organizations, companies, and conferences, and has over 185 referral partners. Please welcome to the show the absolutely outstanding Ashley Owens.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for that. We're going to go over to Zeph Zan. Zeph Zan. She is a vibrant super connector who moves at the speed of 200 miles per hour and a master at live video conversations that get to yes money connections. Zeph Zan is a live broadcast and virtual events producer, consultant, and speaker at Entrepreneurs That Soar and Vendor Shows Live. In her decade of being in the live broadcasting and digital marketing spaces, Zeph has produced, co-produced, and also featured in interviews on all 7 continents of the world, known to many of her audiences as the high-tech, high-touch marketing strategist, or definitely Zeph Zan. She has risen as one of the early adopters and thought ambassadors for topics on live broadcasting and virtual events. Heck, she may just even be the godmother of virtual events. Best 3D words to describe her are dynamic, dauntless, and done. And yes, Zeph does get things done. Also a cancer victor, Zeph just knows how to turn lemons into lemonades. Please welcome to the show, definitely Zeph Zan.
Boom! Thank you very much, Cameron. I'm so happy to be here. You have no idea. So I so appreciate both of you guys, Steve and Cameron, for having me join this panel because I can't wait to get started. So here we are, people. Hold on to your seats because we are going to move at 200 miles per hour. So catch up. Thanks.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Zeph. All right. We're going over to Cassandra Robinson. After 27 jobs and 15 years of diverse work experience in fashion, design, merchandising, retail store management, HR and recruiting, ministry and youth development, I discovered my calling to serve incredibly talented and creative kingdom entrepreneurs like you. Unlock your God-given potential, break through self-doubt, and become the who God intended you to be by helping you share your story and build your brand for his kingdom. Please welcome to the show, the grinding and grace queen, Cassandra Robinson. All right. Got to unmute.
Mute.
Of course. That was just a test to see if you keep you guys on your toes. It's so blessed to be here. Thank you, Steve and Cameron, for the invite, and looking forward to getting to the show and helping you guys unlock your God-given potential, break through those fears so that you can step into your true power.
So much, Cassandra. All right. I just want to shout out our amazing community. Zeph checking in the comments. Thank you for that. Alan checking in from Ardsley, New York. Paul Lucas, hi from NYC. Chris Dutra locking it in from White Plains, New York. Oh, we got the Chris's in the house checking in from Yonkers, New York. So we really want your questions today. I know for myself and included, I think this is something that is a challenge for so many. The imposter syndrome piece, feeling like you're not a fraud, feeling like you're worthwhile, that you have something to offer is a common thing that so many people are going through. So we want to hear, where do you feel insufficient? Where do you feel this fear coming in? Your questions around this issue will help provide that specific feedback that will allow us to give you the help from our expert panel, from folks that are dealing with this all the time to help you break through and show out. Nyasha, former co-worker, checking in. She was definitely interested in the topic, checking in from PA today. Thanks for being here. Mr. Braden Daniels, former guest on the show, checking in. Thanks for being here from Mansfield, Texas. We appreciate you. So we're going to jump right into the topic. Steve, if you would get us started on what is your take on what imposter syndrome is, and then we'll continue from there.
Yeah, thanks, Cameron. And it's great having an amazing panelist on the show. And I can't wait to hear what they have to say as well. So for me, I felt this way. I didn't know it was labeled and called imposter syndrome, but I felt this way my whole life. I always felt not enough. I always looked at myself and I'm like, should I be here? When I had my advertising company, I'm like, I'm just out of college. Like, what am I doing owning an advertising company, and then, being a martial artist and, I'm short, I'm stocky, what the heck? My whole life was, until recently, I'm very blessed, very, very blessed that I was able to break that. But there was for years where I was literally not feeling like I was supposed to be here. I was supposed to be, in this role or whatever. So hopefully other people have felt that way, but have like me found ways to get over it. And hopefully this show and the content you're going to hear today will hopefully be a blessing to you folks and help you get through that and break through the imposter syndrome curse, if you will. So I'm looking over to hear everyone else what they have to say.
We got Andy checking in from Sunny Croton. We got Oscar checking in from Amerenik in the house. Thanks for being here. And I know that Ashley wants to go ahead and jump in. So please, Ashley, jump in here.
I think imposter syndrome comes from a place where you have, you're very excited about either starting something new, you've got a new role, you started a new business, and then imposter syndrome comes from you caring so much about what's going on. It's not coming from a place where you're not going to be able to do it. It comes from a place where you feel like you still have more to learn, which is a good problem to have. So as so many people think about imposter syndrome as a deficit, it is actually your indicator that you are going down the right path, and that way, and you're also seeing how you could get better in the future. And so that anxiety and that stress come from you wanting to be better. If that ever goes away, then you've peaked and you feel in your back of your head that you're never going to learn more. And that's a problem. So I think imposter syndrome is a interesting way of being able to figure out where you are in your own journey, and then being able to pivot the mindset and recognize that you're not an imposter. You just happen to be in a place where, oh, I need to grow, and this is why I have this anxiety or this stress of feeling like I'm not good enough. It means that you just care about it so much, and you're looking at the opportunities to grow and get bigger about it.
Love it, love it, love it. All right. I know, Zeph, you want to jump in. Go ahead.
Come to mind whenever I hear, imposter syndrome. One of the biggest things is because we come from a place of fear. We have the conversation, we approach the situation, we think about, how am I going to be perceived by the people who think I am who I am, right? And so we operate from the place of fear. So when we operate from a place of fear, I know I've experienced this. When I operate from a place of fear, what happens is I'm concentrating too much on what others are going to think about me. It comes from that fear of being judged. So, it's kind of, I feel that anyone in business, this is something normal because like Ashley said, it's like, we're all growing, right? So as we grow, we're also just trying to figure out, is this going to work for me? How are people going to, view me, because I say, or I promote me as this and this and this, how would I be perceived? So, as we continue this conversation, I kind of will share a little bit more about, my own personal experience. But I think really the question is, what is my take on what imposter syndrome is? It really is we, as in our minds, are operating from the place of fear and self-doubt just because, because we're growing and we're always continuously thinking about how will people perceive me? How will I be judged? So that's kind of the elements that would activate the imposter syndrome.
You're on mute, sir.
Sorry, yeah, just before Cassandra jumps in here, Jeff Dobro, who's checking in from Toronto. Thanks for being here. What is imposter syndrome? So giving us this kind of textbook. Imposter syndrome refers to an internal experience of believing that you are not as competent as others perceive you to be. While this definition is usually narrowly applied to intelligence and achievement, it has links to perfectionism and the social context. Absolutely. Thanks for dropping that. And we appreciate that. And we want your questions, right? And what your take on it. Where do you feel like you're coming up against imposter syndrome? Where do you feel fraudulent where maybe you probably shouldn't, right? Go ahead, Cassandra. I know you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I love how today's title is uncovering the root of imposter syndrome versus just what are the blockages or how to overcome, because we look at what the root of is of imposter syndrome, and actually it's a positive thing versus being negative. Seth Godin, a marketing expert, I joined his podcast fellowship some time back, and he mentioned that he asked the question, when you go to the gym or work out or you run, do you feel your muscles being fatigued? And actually, that's a healthy indication, a normal indication of a healthy activity of your workout. If you didn't have that fatigue, you wouldn't feel that workout. You wouldn't know that your muscles are actually, the tiny tears are happening and lactic acid is being built up to expand your muscles. In the same way, imposter syndrome is actually a very positive indicator that you're doing the right activity, the healthy activity to grow yourself and become the best version of who you were created to be.
I love that. And, this second question that we have today, can you be vulnerable and share if and when you've had imposter syndrome. So we want to hear from you. When have you felt those moments? I know for me, it's come up whenever I've had to get on any kind of stage. And I get on over the last year, I've gotten on stage in terms of the platform of YouTube and Facebook, getting on these shows. What do I have to contribute? Do I have something of value? I'm trying to speak to people, and is my knowledge, because I'm not a millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire, not a, crypto king, whatever. Like, do I have something of importance to share? And as an entrepreneur, as a father, as somebody that's done work in my community, taking ownership of what I've actually done to sort of combat that has been key for me, but I feel it every single time. I remember going on stage years ago. I practiced, I rehearsed, got my Pecha presentation, and still I remember the feeling of going on stage and just not feeling good enough. And I think it's something that we constantly battle, and I battle it all the time. I battle it, even having a lot of experience in my business, walking into an event. Is my knowledge, am I, and I was talking about this topic earlier, is somebody going to call me out and call me a free, they're going to say, I'm not as smart as I think I am, that sort of thing. It's a really, really, really challenging thing when you're dealing with it all the time. And especially before you start a project. Somebody was asking me, well, did you feel like that before you started BizDev Live? And it was like, before, yes, as I started, I made the decision, it was off to the races. But before, like pushing the start button, that was always there. Steve, I know you always want to jump in here. So jump in, and then guys, if you'll hit me in the private chat, let me know who wants to jump into this next.
Sure. Put me on the spot. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. Absolutely. So for me, and I kind of shared it in my initial talk, it's been with me the whole time. I think the biggest thing that came up when I got into the entrepreneurial world and I got around very successful people, what always tended to happen for me is it was great being around great people, and that was amazing. And so initially, my secret sauce was I was connected with some amazing people, right? So Cameron, if you and I known each other maybe 5-10 years ago, I would have been like so insecure around you. I would have been like, this guy's got great energy. He's a handsome looking guy. He's very articulate. He never says, I would have all the comparison thing would have been all day long. But through a lot of work, a lot of personal work I've been able to do, some meditation. I had a very incredible spiritual experience. And I finally got comfortable with me, and I said, you know what? I'm okay. I'm enough. I'm always going to grow. I'm always going to strive to be better than I am today, but I'm okay. And there's a lot of great qualities that I have. And maybe someone like Cameron or someone, who, even the ladies in the room here, you ladies are amazing. And there's a parts of me that say, wow, they're great. And I would have done the compare game before, but now I know, hey, I have my own great talents and great abilities, and they're tremendous. And it's okay too. So, what happened for me is it was like, I'm okay. They're okay. It's okay. And that was that. And I got to that place, and it was really a really, really cool place. And I continue to try my best through God's grace to be able to be in that good place.
I see the nods around, just getting that comfort level of putting it out there. And a lot of that is just like, it's going to be what it's going to be, and having the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset. I got to go through some of these comments. I know Zeph is going to jump in next here, but we have such great stuff coming from the audience. So I want to make sure that we ask these questions so that our panel actually gets a chance to ask. I'm going to kind of go through, and then folks can kind of pinpoint something that they want to respond to. But Chris Dutra is saying, how would you suggest getting over the feeling that others are judging you in the middle of a discussion or presentation to prospects? Wow, that's a whole show right there, right? How would you suggest one address the feeling of being judged in the middle? Sorry, repeat there. Jeff says, I've had this feeling several times in my life. I think it was related to self-esteem issues. However, there are ways to get you out, right? Steve was just talking about this, and create an awesome life for yourself. You can predict the future by creating it. Nyasha says, agree with the panel. I invested so much in my education, right? Man, for folks that have degrees and everything that are going through this, right? It's a whole nother level, right? You paid for stuff. I've obtained a master's in taxation. I'm so afraid of not having enough knowledge to become my own boss. I'm constantly doubting my abilities and feel like I need more education. I think to myself, Nyasha, when is enough enough? You're intelligent and equipped. I certainly agree it's operating from a place of fear. And it's really interesting when you got like 17-year-olds in your community writing books on investing after, starting an investor club. It's like, is the education necessary? No, not exactly, right? Ariel, thanks for being one of my students from SBI since going on become a graduate, talking about college. Very proud of this young man, Ariel German. Completely agree with Cassandra. Anytime I felt that uncomfortable feeling, I've taken it as a sign that I'm doing something new for the first time, and it motivates me to make sure I work as smart and to learn as much as I can. Love that. Nyasha says, how do you get out of your own way? A little bit further on that, right? And Susan says, I believe imposter syndrome would cause tension in our bodies, not feeling, I think, relaxed, right? Yep, yes. and Donna, thanks everybody for getting these comments in. Love your subject, Steve. I often talk about this during my career coaching sessions. Yeah, it's a big deal. Hey, Luann. All right, Zep, a lot to tackle there, but you could share your experience, and then feel free, anybody that wants to chime in, hit me on the private chat, and we'll definitely dig into any of these pieces of it. Go ahead, Zeph.
So in addressing the vulnerability of this question, and, of course, for me, I'm just going to, I was trying to figure out like which angle did I want to share about this? Like where in my life did this get started, right? So one of the things that has kind of brought me back while we're having this conversation is the fact that, I thought this imposter syndrome just happened during my adulthood, running my business and growing a business, building a business. But what I've realized, I'm just having goosies, guys, about talking about this because I love being vulnerable, because I feel like if I'm able to be like vulnerable and open up, it serves others, right? So one of the things, as everyone's sharing, and I'm trying to figure out which angle they want to share again. So it kind of suddenly I'm guided to my past, like my childhood, right? Because I didn't grow up in the US. I grew up in Malaysia. So I was born, raised, went to school there, and then I left in my early teenhood, to the US. Long story short is that I'm thinking about like, when did I ever experience this in childhood? And then I realized I did, because I feel that a big part of my imposter syndrome was kind of like passed down through generations for me. I'm not sure if anyone gets this, but for me, I've seen my mom, used to say like, you're my child, you have to go to a boarding school because this is what we do. And I'm thinking like, I don't want to go to a boarding school. What are you talking about? Right. But then, this is what I'm talking about, passing down this imposter syndrome, through a generation that this wasn't even mine to begin with, but because, I came from that culture, and, my parents did not know better, probably, because it probably was passed down through generations. So, and just talking about being vulnerable about this topic, I'm thinking like, wow, I should probably share that. And then how this has kind of transpired into my own business is the fact that, I'm looking at, the growth part where I shared, I come from a place of fear that sometimes I feel like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm good enough. And here I am, passionate about what I do. I'm telling people this will work. This is a strategy. But then, just like what Cameron was sharing earlier, whether it could be the finances or whatever it is, the perceived notion of being successful. What does that mean? It means differently for everybody. So, of course, the fear of being judged, the fear of how other people will perceive us. And because I did grow up with the idea of being perfect, right? Because I did not know better. So Jeff was absolutely right. So when Jeff, you shared that, I was like, oh my God, I get it. I so get it. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Perfectionism as one of the reasons why I experienced, imposter syndrome, because I thought I had to be perfect. In order to be perfect, I had to show up, like they say, fake it till you make it. Actually, that doesn't really work for me, at least. So that's what I think, the things that are passed down through generations that I didn't even know don't belong to me, and I've taken it on. And that's where I think sometimes my imposter syndrome pops up, creeps up on me, before I know. It's like, oh, it's like right there. So I've had to kind of find ways, grow spiritually to kind of handle and manage that. So that's what I wanted to share. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. Playing with all the buttons over here. Cassandra, jump in, please.
Yes, thank you. So I would say in short answer, yes, you can definitely be vulnerable and share if you have imposter syndrome. I mean, I'm experiencing it right now up here speaking to you all, right? And I experience it every time I post a video on LinkedIn or show up on social media or reach out to my husband to have a vulnerable conversation. And when we can still share and be vulnerable and show up and share a message with the world, even if we feel like incompetent or we don't have enough experience. I love the lady who mentioned I have 17 years of experience, a master's degree, and I still don't feel like I'm enough. So we have to really get to the root of our inherent value is God-given, and nothing that education or anything that man says about us, it doesn't fit that, right? Our value comes from who God says we are. So I think if we can find our identity in Christ and find our identity in our faith and who we're created as human beings, that we have inherent value and that we have powerful message to share, that gives us the confidence to share our story, no matter how young or how inexperienced you are. So in short, yes, you can be vulnerable and share your message and do it with fear and everything. I'm right now, I'm fearful of sharing and speaking my truth, right? But you can break past that fear, knowing that if there's one person in the audience that you might touch or impact through sharing your message, then it's worth it.
Love that. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And there's something for everybody, and you are amazing. You have a message that's going to impact somebody deeply, and believing that. And we don't get too many times into the conversation of faith, but the idea of having faith in yourself is a big deal. Ashley, I know you want to jump in.
Sure. I just want to make it very clear that everyone's winging it. Like we all think that we know what we're doing. We're all winging it. And so as you get older and as you talk to other people,
I wanted to capture the nods in the room as everybody was going through that. Yeah.
We're all making stuff up as we go, and we're pulling it off because we have the tools and the skills to be able to manage it. So half of this imposter syndrome is just remembering that we have the knowledge to be able to troubleshoot, to remind ourselves that we have the tools to be able to troubleshoot. So if you're worried about the outcome of something that hasn't even happened yet, I really challenge you to just have faith in yourself to say, I'm able to do this, because I've been proverbially punched in the face a bunch of times, and I know how to stand up and how to fight back. So if you look at your experiences and actually write them down on paper, it makes it a little bit easier to understand, oh, if this situation happened, here's what I did before. Oh, I can do that again, and just be confident that you'll be able to figure it out. I was watching something the other day, and especially around just women in the workplace in general. I think Reese Witherspoon kind of gave a presentation, and she was talking about why she started her production company. The production company was based off of her not seeing the right kinds of movies out there. And one of the lines that I will always quote to this day was, she was talking about how in each of these movies that she was getting presented, there was always a female character saying, in the instance of something going wrong, the female character always said, well, what do we do now? And have you ever met any woman in a serious or emergency situation ever say, well, what do we do now? No. Because we know how to troubleshoot. There's not going to be one woman in the room that's not going to be like, we're going to get this, everybody line up. Like there's a leadership opportunity there. And that's because the way that we are perceived and the way that we think we need to be perceived may be skewed from what we can actually accomplish. So imposter syndrome to me means that you're going to wing it until you are comfortable with being uncomfortable. And however you make decisions or whatever motivates you, I would empower yourself to do more of that, so that way it doesn't sting as much if it doesn't go your way. So I would just triple down on the things that make you happy and like ramp you up, whether it's a podcast list, whether it's a Spotify account, whether it's reaching out to your badass friends. I'm not sure if I can curse on this, I'm sorry. Whether it's reaching out to your ladies in the area or the men in the area that just amp you up and gas you up, that's okay to ask for. So whatever you need to get to that point, sometimes it's wearing glasses and being a completely different person. These are cosmetic, because this is a character that I play, right? So whatever it takes for you to get to that point, recognize that it's important because it's your process. So if you can be a version of yourself by doing these external things, good. Because nobody knows what we're doing. we just know how to pull it off because we have the skills and the experience to be able to get to that point. So imposter syndrome is natural and it's supposed to happen. It means you care, and giving the tools and being able to have faith in the tools that you can troubleshoot is half the battle.
And I think one of the really important things is, there's like that fake it till you make it sort of expression out there, and we're kind of having fun with winging it, right? But the idea that, like Nyasha's comment and so many people that have the knowledge, that have the expertise, that know how to stay calm in the middle of the fray, which, again, my wife is not ever going to be in that position of what do we do? Yeah. She's more like, you need to do this, right? That's the conversation. But the idea that we have to really, really own the expertise that we have and really stand behind it and know that we are enough for the situations and where we aren't. I love on the private chat, Cassandra was saying, I love that, Ashley. We're all winging it. Even the experts only know a little bit about their field. And if we don't know the answer, we can go Google it or look up the answer in a book. And so, it's not about what we don't know. It's what we do know. And, this goes back to the expression that we all go, you're not paying for, the hour worth of my time. You're paying for the last 30 years of experience, labor of love, blood, sweat, and tears, all that stuff. I know Steve wanted to jump in, and we'll get into our third question after that. Go ahead, Steve.
Absolutely. Amazing shares so far. It's been great. So something that Zeph talked about kind of hit a chord for me, and that is, when she talked about a child, and I remember, and I shared a little bit that, I've shared a lot that I've been a picked on, bullied guy, shy, introverted, and then also learning disabled, dyslexic. And, for me, it was that initial ridiculing, that, someone making fun of you, and that became humiliating. And then I remember, because my learning disability is reading, and thank God for Audible, but, reading before class, and then I would stutter and stumble and mess words up and all those things, embarrassing. And so I think for me, it was this sort of vulnerability of not wanting to be wrong, not wanting to be made fun of, not wanting to be embarrassed. And that fear stayed with me to my adulthood. And so what I've learned, and I like to throw out books that I've read before, a great book is Mindset. And it talks about, forget the author's name, it might be Zweck, but she talks about that there is a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And so I, for many years, kind of focused in on a fixed mindset, which is always wanting to be perfect, because I didn't want to be made fun of. I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to be humiliated, right? But being comfortable in making those mistakes, and now trying to have more of a growth mindset, is really where my mindset is. And it's okay if I'm wrong, so what? It's all right. You learn from it. You learn and you move on, right? I've learned that you're either winning or you're learning, right? And that's just the mindset. So just wanted to share that before we got into the next topic.
Love it. So the next question here we have is, what are some cures for imposter syndrome for people or yourself? And I just want to go back, Steve, while you're on screen. I'll pull everybody up here, but we had some questions around this, right? So, how do you get out of your own way? Nyasha says. We have, how would you suggest getting over this feeling of being judged? And I know we've talked a little bit to it, but if we can get really particular to ways that we've kind of solved this for ourselves. I know a little bit of it for me is just get over myself and do it. But what are some of the things that you've kind of done to actively work against imposter syndrome? Have you sought feedback? Have you read a book? I know Cassandra put a book into the chat. I'll see if I can get it book big here and see if I can share that. Who wants to, Steve, you want to just jump in, and then we'll get the folks going on the private chat.
Cassandra corrected me. It's Carol Dweck. I was close. I knew it had similar sound. So thanks, Cassandra, for that. Great ad there. Yeah. I mean, how do you get through this? How do you get over it? I'll let you know when it really ever happens, right? It's still a work in progress for me. I haven't gotten perfect at it, right? But I do know this, that my recovery time, just like in working out, Cassandra brought that analogy up. It's very true, right? The more you work out, the more you get used to that recovery time, and the recovery time is much quicker, right? So for me, it's like for example, last night I was on a Zoom call with some folks, and I was called out, and my recovery time would probably be like 6 weeks, and I'm pretty much over it, right? And that's longer than it should be. It should have been like 2 seconds recovery time. So I'm still working through it. But you know what? I think it's just feeling comfortable with you, knowing you're enough. You just have to. One thing I'll tell you what I do. I'll do two things. Number one, put an inventory of yourself. You write down all the things you've accomplished, right? Write them all down, everything you possibly can. And then maybe share them with somebody. That's something that I've done, and it's been very, very helpful. The other thing I love to do is every morning I wake up, I do a gratitude list. I have 3 things I'm grateful for. And when you do those things, it helps make you feel good about who you are and where you're at.
Love that. And, it's interesting because when you say like writing down a list of accomplishments, isn't that what we do for students as they're going through the school system? Hey, start that resume, start listing out those things that you've done so you can show and remember for yourself. Because if you don't, you start forgetting the things that you've done. You start forgetting the fact that you've worked in the community, been in the soup kitchen, done this over here, worked on this garden, put together this project, got these A's on these reports, because it all, life goes by in this big blur, and it's so easy to forget. And then somebody asks you, well, what have you done? What have you achieved? And you're put on the spot. And if you haven't created that list, it's a big, big, big deal. I want to shout out Susan, who said she had a little bit of a different take on imposter syndrome, differently than Ashley said. I find to be pretending to be someone. That is the understanding I had. I can never pretend, right? So a little bit of a different take, right? So you feel like you need to be maybe somebody else, right? And so maybe you need to feel like you're more outgoing, and that feels different than who you are. So another thing to answer on this: how do you get past those pieces? Ashley, I know you want to jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great take, Susan, and I appreciate that. I think that there is a difference, or at least what I was trying to communicate was that there's a difference between being somebody else and being a different version of yourself, right? So we walk around every day, and sometimes we're a different version of ourselves at the coffee shop. Sometimes we're a different version of ourselves with our bosses, with our families, with our friends. It's not that we're not the same person. It's just we have a heightened level of maybe the tone changes, maybe the body language changes from, you just sitting down watching TV and just kind of being, not engaged with any other energies, right? So it's, in my opinion, and the way that I kind of got through imposter syndrome, and frankly, this is funny because this is how I go through it, is I binge watched Scandal for 3 months before I started my business. And I was like, I want to be Olivia Pope. I wasn't in my head ready yet to do that, but I wanted to emulate her. And then by the time I got to the point where I felt confident in myself, I pretended in my head to be her. Like, what would she do? Or at least how would she act? And even just a little bit of that gave me the confidence to be outside of my own insecurities and put myself into her shoes. And again, it's a fictional character, but that was a visual representation of the kind of confidence that I wanted to have. So that was the way that I was able to emulate. Didn't change who I was. I didn't change anything about myself except how I presented myself and how I thought of myself, which was internal. To get over imposter syndrome, it is a self-care kind of activity. Imposter syndrome comes from, it's not a one-size-fits-all, and it's extremely subjective. Somebody may have imposter syndrome and they may be the most, famous person in the world. They're probably be an introvert who, is inside themselves. Doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means they're self-conscious. So your imposter syndrome comes from someplace. Wherever that place is, acknowledge it, lean into it, accept it, and find people around you that remind you who the hell that you are. Because there are people out there that are doing less, or just, excuse me, that are doing more with less. And for that woman who told me about all of her masters and all of her credentials, please let me just yell affirmations at you for 45 minutes. I will make sure you take on the work. I don't understand. And sometimes I get so wonderfully, emotionally involved with my clients because they have so many so many credentials, and they haven't had the experience yet to feel valued in a public or social setting that affirms that what they're doing is of value. They have the credentials, but they haven't had a chance yet to have the group of people to affirm that that is of value. So what I would say in that instance is find a group of people or start weeding people out of your network that do not support you in that way, that do not make you feel like you are on top of the world. Because when you get that energy, you can also, when you give that energy, you should also receive it. And that's my take on that.
Zeph, I know you want to jump in. Go ahead.
The way I have been kind of slowly building, my way through this, a few ways. So 3 things come to mind, and I agree with the mindset. It starts there with the mindset, right? But mindset is not something that, the change, the growth in mindset, or the evolve of a particular mindset. It doesn't happen overnight. Let me put it that way. It's work in progress. So at the end of the day, I asked myself, Zev, where are you putting your energy in? Are you doing the negative stuff more, or are you kind of investing your energy in the positive stuff? So for me, I'm asking, I have a daily mindset check because listen, because it's this thing called life. Life throws us curveballs, and then we meet people. We get up in the morning and go like, okay, it's going to be a great day. And then somebody from the north will come in and go like, I'm going to shake your roots today. And then suddenly by 12 p.m., you're like all flustered. And you go like, and then you have another check at 12:30 and go like, okay, where did that energy go this morning? And it's always a constant, work in progress. So definitely have to focus on the mindset and where I'm putting my energy. The second part is, this is something that along the way that I've picked up in my own spiritual journey is focus on the purpose, right? Because sometimes we focus on something that is so materialistic and we forget why we do it. And in business, we are taught to like, why do you do this? Because your why kind of helps you wake up in the morning and figure out, why do you need to do this? Even though it's such a stressful day, it helps you to show up at 5 a.m. for your, for your tribe and all that stuff. So focus on the purpose has helped me a lot instead of just like focus on the negatives or focus on that imposter syndrome. So if I focus on my purpose, I get to go to the next level, which is number 3, minding my own business, which is focusing on me, focusing on what I can do best, how I can show up for the other person, how I can serve the other person. Because if I don't do that, if I don't mind my own business because I'm minding somebody else's business, then I can't focus on my purpose. I can't focus on my mindset. Therefore, the imposter syndrome is just going to creep up. And suddenly I'm just thinking I need to be somebody else, just like what Susan said. So that's how I kind of like have done this managing this imposter syndrome conversation, like through these 3 different steps. And it's not something, that I do overnight. It's actually accumulated over the years. So be patient and grow with it. So that's what I've done. It really has helped me though.
I love that. I went to the big view here because as soon as you said that, mind your business, a lot of head nodding, a lot of conciliatory, right? Love that a lot. Cassandra, I know you wanted to jump in. Go ahead.
Well, based on our conversation, I love that it's not looking actually for a cure for imposter syndrome, but reframing imposter syndrome to be a healthy indication of you doing the right activity, right? Like you almost love that burn so much in working out that you actually seek out that uncomfortable feeling, knowing that that's going to put you in the position to reach your highest potential. And I think that that's what like the greats like Rachel Hollis, right? Marie Forleo, even Brene Brown says those who wade into the discomfort of their stories and own their stories are the real badasses. And we know the popular quote by Will Smith that says that your maximum potential is actually on the other side of your maximum level of fear. So I think the key is in reframing the imposter syndrome, which is typically associated with like anxiety and depression and like I don't want to do anything that's associated with that feeling, and actually reframing it to be something positive, and that we actually are choosing to seek out activities that put us into that position of feeling uncomfortable and like loving the uncomfortable feeling, knowing that actually I'm right where I should be, and this is where I'm going to be able to become who I was destined to be.
throw in here. I know Steve is going to jump in here, but I want to kind of go back around and talk about networking. Now, some of us have been not using the same muscles that were needed pre-pandemic because we've been maybe networking virtually online. And for some people, maybe they've stopped networking altogether. They didn't want to do the online thing, and that was too uncomfortable. Being on camera, that intimidates a lot of people. And I don't want to confuse like fear of public speaking and fear in general with the imposter syndrome, but it's all puzzle pieces, right? Like Zeph was saying, mind your own damn business, because we let these voices get in. Maybe we're not working out so often. Conversations around productivity and motivation go back to, am I moving my body, right? All these pieces going into place. Am I meditating? Am I praying? Am I all these different pieces that go into it? Am I creating a situation where I can potentially get over, these other pieces, and then, battling the imposter syndrome is the least significant challenge of the day, or the only challenge, versus all these other things of feeling lazy because I haven't got out moving. And so I'm not going to go to the networking meeting. But I know one of my biggest fears, even though some people look at me and say, oh man, he's outgoing. He's on screen. He's got a presence. He's all over social media. I get to that table, that registration table at the hotel where we're doing that networking event, and I look out past the networking table and I see these high boys where there's people's backs around. They got a little bit of food from the hors d'oeuvre table, and knowing that I have to enter there and start making conversation with people that I don't know, I start feeling like, what do I have to contribute? Oh, am I going to be a pain in the ass to somebody? And so that's, that's when some of that starts kicking in for me. So love to kind of hear your take on how you push yourself to network. Steve, I know you want to jump in. I think this is a great topic for you.
Absolutely. And so, so I will say this, networking was not my strong suit. And every time I do it, whether it be virtual or back then when we were doing it physically, it was not my strong suit. And I felt the blood pressure rise in my head big time every time I did it. But what I've tried to do is say, hey, make myself feel, and there's some self-talk you could do around this. But hey, when I'm in the room is better. Okay, and that's a mindset I tend to take into a networking event. But I want to be a little bit further vulnerable with you folks, specifically about this. And I think it was brought up. I don't recall now who said it at this point, but a lot of thoughts going through, a lot of great ideas coming across. Where we're talking about not necessarily the imposter syndrome, and we're kind of going into a different direction here. I think what I'm saying, the take I have on imposter syndrome is, yes, you don't feel like you belong in that place, right? But what is it? It's the fear that's behind it. So there's kind of two parts to it, right? It's what it is and how you're feeling around it. And I think what this conversation has been talking a lot about is the feeling behind imposter syndrome. So I want to just share a little bit of vulnerability with you folks in terms of what happened for me. My sister has, over the years been to a therapist. I hope she's okay with me saying this. Who she spoke super highly of. It was a man, and I've often been to therapists that were women. And I read a book. It's a great book. It's called Wild at Heart. Phenomenal book, life-changing book, especially if you're a man. Incredible book. And I kind of felt, I'm missing a father figure in my life. My dad was not present a lot in my early days. There wasn't a rite of passage. He was busy working. He was emotionally, physically, and kind of spiritually, if you will, not there. And so I said, let me go see this man. And it was only like a couple of, I don't know, maybe a couple of months worth of sessions. But he said to me, and he said, Steve, I don't understand why you are so insecure about yourself. He said, you got to understand, I'm not going to break any kind of confidentiality, but I'm going to tell you, there are some really broken people that I see. He said, you got a couple of black belts. You had your own karate studio. You had your own advertising company. You've got a spiritual foundation. And he went through this whole litany of stuff, and he said, you're okay. And I'm like, so one thing is to go to somebody, whether it's somebody who's maybe a spiritual leader, like a pastor, maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's somebody, a mentor in your life, and talk to them about this. And maybe through a conversation, they could reaffirm to you, like was done for me, that I'm okay. So anyway, that was one. And one other thing I want to bring up to you guys, and it looks like Cameron has left the virtual room. Oh, he's come back. One thing I want to say.
Just managing the visuals here. That's all.
No worries. But I will say this, that being vulnerable gives you the strength and gives you the confidence. Because now if you lead with vulnerability, you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm exposed, because you're being vulnerable about it, right? So that's one thing I want to share. And another thing I want to share, I took some notes, is when you serve others, and Zeph, you kind of touched on this. You talked about serving your community, and when you serve others, that's when you really start to really grow you. Because when you start to hear amazing feedback from people, that builds you up too. And you start to, it affirms you as well. Anyway, so those are some things I had on my mind. Yeah, exactly. Boom. There you go. Anyway, who wants to go next? I know Cameron's not here. Oh, he's back now.
Zeph, I know, wanted to jump in. Go ahead, Zeph.
So I wanted to kind of respond to what you shared earlier about the networking, Cameron, about, walking into a room, and I get many people right now, like some are on the, the fans, like, I don't want to go. So one of the things, this is something that I've had to learn along the lines. I've had to learn from some of the best people, like master connectors and people who network in person and stuff like that. What I've had to learn is that, especially I get intimidated too when walking. This gal who actually, blah, 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 and then that 200 miles an hour in the energy. And I'm thinking, like, I could be a Zeph Nami. Okay, that's actually a hashtag created for me by one of my viewers. So thank you very much. I could be a Zeph Nami and just clean the whole room. But you know what, folks? When I attend a networking event, what I've had to learn is not always going to be about me, right? Especially when I come from a place of fear. I come from a place of, oh, I'm an imposter syndrome. I have this imposter syndrome today. Like, it's acting up really bad. How am I walking through that room? Because over the other side, there are some really big names that I need to connect to, but I just don't know how to get that started conversation now. So what I've had to learn from some of the best connectors and, networkers in the world is that, because I've learned from the best leaders I've had the privilege to work with. And they say, like, because the reason I have that fear is because I'm going in thinking that I had to be perfect. I had to actually show up as the person that, all high and mighty, but I was taught, what if you walked in like a friend and, it's not about you, it's about the other person. And I said, how do I create that conversation? Well, people love themselves. Just say, hey, I love your tie. That's an icebreaker. Hey, oh my God, where did you get that handbag, that scarf? So that immediately takes care of my perfectionism, because I'm creating conversations. Therefore, I'm engaging and connecting. Because if I didn't do that, I would be walking in with just one thing, like, how do I say the right thing to the person? There is no right thing, right? All we need to do is start a conversation, and then I will ease up. So that's what I've had to learn. It's not about like me, especially at a networking event. It's about giving also, or sharing, right? Share first, right? Give first before you take anything. So I've had to practice that over the years. That helps me to like overcome that fear.
I wanted to say something because I think it's so important what you're saying. If you've ever been at an event and you've been talking to somebody and they're looking over your shoulder to look at somebody else's name badge to kind of pivot away from you. And that's one of your pet peeves, which I got to say, that's one of the things I hate most about networking events. Somebody's just not really, and it's not about that I don't care that they think I'm important or not. It's like, I'm trying to have a conversation with you and you're not paying attention to me. Right. And it's unpolite. And I'm going to raise my hand here. Have you done the same thing? Right? Are you the change that you want to see? And I know I've been in a situation where somebody, for whatever reason, maybe you could say it was a good reason, they were running their mouth, they weren't really saying anything. And I'm sitting there like, is there something else somewhere going on? So it's are you the change that you want to see? Are you delivering? And one of the things that I think it's really important, can you be present? And when you were saying the tie comment, we talk about folks like Bill Clinton, wherever you come in on the political spectrum, regardless, for people like him that have this talent to connect with people, story after story of being in a moment, and he's unforgettable because in that moment, no matter how powerful he's gotten. He's in that room with you. He is locked in. He's paying attention. He's complimenting. Story from my executive director of the nonprofit I work with. He was in this room. He complimented my time, made me feel good about myself. So how are you making people feel? And I love the, mind your own business, right? Don't worry about what other people, what are you doing? And that might be the thing that helps you get to the next step. I know, Ashley, you wanted to jump in, and Cassandra right after. And I know you sent me this book, so I'll throw this book on the screen when you go. Go ahead, Ashley.
So, just a couple things, and we'll keep it short because I definitely want to hear what Cassandra has to say, because I think she's going to wrap it up beautifully. But there is 3 things. Nobody gives a damn about what you do. Nobody cares. Nobody really cares. What they care about is how you make them feel and what you can do for them. Cameron, you had talked about it in the last conversation about walking into a room and not feeling like, the imposter syndrome, feeling like, what can I give that is of value? You're the person that's going to be of value. And that's enough. That's enough of it, because again, nobody cares about what you do. The reason why people have such a stigma against networking is because they're looking at the transactional piece of it, because that's how we were taught. If you look at it as a human-to-human interaction and take the pressure off of trying to sell yourself to that person or trying to impress them, you're going to miss out on a human intentional connection. When you meet with somebody new, be curious. That's it. Just be curious. Because if you're curious, you're asking the right questions, and you're not asking the questions that are very, very, they're just so straightforward. Before the pandemic, I was going to events with my clients so I could rip the Band-Aid off for them while they were there. If they said something incorrect, or if it was very much a sales pitch, we take them back, reset, go back in. But we would do this at a couple of events so that way they can get over the fear of putting their foot in their mouth. So that way when they did it again, they knew not to do it again. So if you have that imposter syndrome going into a new event, I challenge you to fail hard, fail fast, and move on. So
I love that. And I want before you finish up, because you're talking, I think, right on this question here, how would you recommend breaking into the huddle of 4 people at a networking event who obviously know each other, but you would like to join the conversation? From Chris Dutra here. This got to be one of those most challenging kind of things. You're breaking into a clique that's already formed, right?
Yes. If you're breaking into a clique that's already formed, you usually don't want to go into a group of 4. You want to go into a group of 3, because you can always teeter off. So a group of 4 will be more engaged. A group of 3 is a little bit easier. And go for the introverts, man. They're always hanging out by the bar by themselves. They're probably the most intentional people that you want to talk to, and they will listen to what you have to say. Introverts are better networkers because they listen with intention. That's just how they're built. Extroverts will get able to do a lot more quantity over quality. But if you learn how to be an introverted extrovert, you're going to be a power networker. Absolutely, totally, in your communication style and your comfortability level within an event and how you engage yourself with intention.
Jump in here, Cassandra.
A lot of amazing conversation going on here. I love this. So I love the idea that the cure to imposter syndrome is being able to lead with a servant leadership attitude. And then in order to do that, this idea of self-love, which could be a whole other conversation, right? Like actually loving yourself, doing the mirror work and pumping yourself up. Like you are BA, Cassandra, Ashley, like you've got this, you have the skill set, you're amazing. Like you can do this. Like I even did this before our call today. Like you got this, girlfriend, let's do it. You know, like be your best friend. Be yourself's best friend. Like you go into it with that, knowing that you're going to kill it, that you're going to crush it, because people are attracted to people who are confident and who love themselves, because it's infectious. It raises the bar for the audience or for the people in that group. Like, dang, that girl is attractive because she holds herself and carries herself. Like, I don't even believe in myself that much. Like, what does she have that I don't have? And so you gravitate towards those people. So I think having that, self-love for yourself is a definitely powerful cure to imposter syndrome. I struggled with insecurity and deep-rooted insecurity for 15 plus years of my life, being bullied in middle school for my skin color, or even my sister making fun of like the size of my lips. I used to suck them in like this because I was ashamed of them. But then as you grow, you step into who you are and you embrace like those little quirks, you know, those things, that we all have quirks and insecurities. Like, own those. Those make you who you are, and they become your unique value prop. And you want to stand out in a saturated market. Like Zeph, she has great energy, right? Like, that's attractive. You want to be by someone who has that type of energy. So love yourself. And I know it's a journey. Self-love is a journey. Like Ashley said, it's self-care is a journey. Doing mirror work, doing the gratitude, doing the journaling, working out, breaking a sweat, all of that. It's a holistic approach to overcoming and managing imposter syndrome. We talked for maybe an hour. We could go on for, days about this, but hopefully this helps you just get, breaks the iceberg into overcoming and stepping into your highest potential and what God created you to be.
And you guys were bringing this book up in the private chat, Wild at Heart by John L. Did you want to talk about that?
Steve, I think that was your
Steve, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, it's a spiritual book, so I will say that. So, warning to those who are not spiritual, it's going to be spiritual with scripture in it and everything. But it's for me, it was just great because it talked about, and it's so adapt. I don't know the words as well, but I know it's every man is looking for a adventure to seek, a woman to win, and a battle to fight, or something like that. And there's some really good stuff in there that, and again, I know this is a very tough topic when you're talking male, female. I know that's a sensitive subject right now, but for me, it resonated. And so it's a great book. So again, if you have anything in common with me, where you felt like as a young man, you kind of maybe didn't have the typical, childhood where you kind of grew up and had a strong father figure, kind of, took you to play baseball, told you how to speak to girls, all those things. The book is a great book. That's what it did for me.
It's like, would you want to hang out with you? Like, would you want to hang out with you? And until you can get to be that person,
yeah.
Like, be confident. Like, would you want to go out to a dinner, to lunch, to have a deep conversation with? Is that the person that you want to hang out with? And then once you get there and you can confidently say yes,
sure, you're
good.
All right, so I want to go around with everybody. We're towards the end of the program here. We've had such great comments. We're going to get your final statements here. And what I'd like you to do, one, what's your big takeaway for folks to help combat not only imposter syndrome, but because I think a lot of, when we think about imposter syndrome, it's pushing ourselves to the next step, to grow beyond where we are, to get on stage, go to the networking event, whatever that thing that we're trying to do, it's a barrier, it's a roadblock. So a powerful takeaway for you that you think can help people. And then please let everybody know how they can get in touch with you and who you're looking to connect with you. We're going to go around. We'll go Ashley and then Cassandra and Zeph in alphabetical here. And we'll close out the show here. We got lots of great comments. Susan, people are attracted to positive energy. Absolutely agree. Jennifer checking in, trying to get to some of the folks I haven't mentioned. Oscar Capel, this I think was his answer to getting in amongst the 4 people that backs are turned to you. He says, I've got drugs, maybe vaccine. I don't know. Good conversation starter for sure. And I just want to shout out to Zeph Zan, who answered Mr. Chris Dutra in the comments. Just asked, hi, I'm Chris. Would it be okay if I joined in on the conversation? And we'd love to hear more about you. And I love this technique of asking permission, right? And I was on doing BizDev Live today with Stefan Theringer, and he often does it. And it can almost seem like annoying because of how often he does it. But it's one of those things, you can see the technique and how he does it. He's going to say, Zeph, will you allow me to ask you sort of a personal question? What are you going to say? But now you've given me permission, right? And so now we can go there versus me just kind of sticking the needle in, jabbing without any kind of warning, kind of opens it up. And so this kind of asking permission in the networking session, even when you're talking about sales or, hey, can I tell you, I want to share my story. And not everybody's comfortable hearing that in the networking place. Can I share my story with you? Because it'll give you a little bit more insight about me. Maybe because somebody's throwing their pitch at you and what you want to do is really talk about your lives, so that you have some common bounds, common things to build on. Such an important way, such a great way. I love that comment a lot, Zeph. So let's go around. Ashley, help close this out here. Big takeaway for you, and how should people reach you, and who would you like to reach you?
Big takeaway is everybody's going through imposter syndrome, and if they say they're not, they're lying. We're all winging it. Normalize talking about imposter syndrome so you can get to the next step, and so you can overcome it with the help of other people who have gone through it. And the way that you can find me is ashley@ashleyAssist.com, ashleyAssist.com. I train, educate, and speak on tactical and tangible digital networking. So I'd love to work with you, have conversations like this, and thank you guys so much for having me today.
Thank you, Ashley. We're going over to Cassandra. Here we go.
So biggest takeaway is that everything you ever desired in your life is on the maximum level of fear. So just choose to do one thing that scares you every day, even if it's that conversation with your husband, your spouse, or your child. Choose to do the things that scare you and that really energize you, because that is how you're going to reach to your next level and break outside of that imposter syndrome that's holding you back. And then I would say, as far as reaching out to me, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm sort of a one-hit wonder with the social media. So LinkedIn is the best way to reach out to me. Also, check out my podcast, Grinding in Grace, the Grinding Grace podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, and I am a brand builder for believers. So if you are a fellow member of the body of Christ, a believer, and even if you're not, I'd love to network with you and help you build your brand on LinkedIn, leveraging the power of your testimony and your unique story. Thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra. All right, we're going over to Zeph Zan.
So one of the things I think my takeaway from the whole conversation, to kind of just like address the imposter syndrome conversation, is the fact, like, you know what? I had to understand that I'm enough and you are enough, and you do you, and you focus on you, and you focus on your purpose, and, mind your own business. It really is about that. And then, because if we mind our own business and focus on us, basically we get to go into the purpose, why we're here, and how we can serve others better, how we can connect with others better. And it's really important, because sometimes we allow ourselves be swayed by how other people judge us or perceive us. So let's not think about what they think about us, but think about how we mind our own business. So mind my own business. So you can connect with me, definitely. You can engage with my hashtag Zaphnitely. And you can easily find me at zapzan.com or vendorshows.live. Thank you for having me. Right there. It's right there. Thanks, Cameron, for putting that up.
Absolutely. And Zeph, thank you so much. You add so much to the show. Thanks for being here. I'm just going to say the one thing that I would give to everybody out there is F the fear, right? Mind your business, add all that, and F the fear, and just go out and do it. You have amazing value. If we didn't feel like we weren't good enough, if I felt like I had to be Gary Vee to start, doing a show online, it just never would be out there, and we wouldn't be able to provide the value, wouldn't be able to be the light. That's the whole deal. That's the whole business right there. So get it started, get out there. I know we encourage a lot of our community members. We're so excited when we see our community members. Big shout out to Chris Janewski, right? Folks that have taken the step, putting their video online, still encouraging you to do so. Keep it up. The consistency is a big deal. Keep showing up. We enjoy seeing it. Tag us in the comments. We want to like and be on the journey with you. Steve, take it away. Master Connector.
So much great stuff. And, so the biggest one that I got from it was this sort of muscle comparison, right? And working out, and just always growing and getting comfortable with that uncomfortable, and just growing to be the best version of you can be. And the second piece of it is just, don't care. You're okay. You are okay. That is it for me. It's like, Steve, you're okay. They're okay. You're okay. And you don't know what their issues are. They may have a lot of stuff going on. They may look perfect on the outside, but maybe they've got challenges going on behind the scenes, and you just don't know. So, but I love this conversation. This is great. And obviously what I love about this platform here is you mentioned it, Cameron, right? To us, to you and I know we share the same feeling. We want to be the light in this world. We want to really, and I know a lot of the folks here on this call, I think speak for everyone here. We want to inspire people. We want to be a blessing to others, and we want to make sure that, you know, in this dark world that there's a lot of hurting. We want to be that hope. We want to be able to inspire people. So I love the fact that we were doing it. Hopefully this show today encouraged people, gave people strength, gave people hope. And I really hope that you do reach out to every one of the panelists here. Each and every one has their own incredible strength. And one of probably the biggest takeaway is I want to be like Zeb Zan. I want to have that energy. I'm good with who I am, okay? But if I could grow a little more energy like that, that would be a good thing for me, you know? But I'm happy with who I am. I'm not, I used to be envious of you, Zeb. So thank God I'm not, right? But I appreciate it.
We all need a can of Zeph in our life, right?
Absolutely. So anyway.
So this is the time of the show. We're going to count down for us, Steve, and we will say crush it because we want you all to go out and crush it. Here we go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Crush it!
Crush it!
Thank you, everybody. We're going to play this off. Steve, thanks so much. Zeph, thanks so much. Cassandra, thanks so much. Ashley, thanks for being here. Here we go. We'll close it out with the video. Keep the questions coming. We'll follow up in the comments. We love you all. Have a great week, and we will see you next week. Steve, topic for next week
is Power Behind Mastermind.
Yes. So check us out. It's going to be a great show. If you haven't been a part of a mastermind, such a great topic. And if you are a part of mastermind, we want to hear your input, your feedback. And I'm sure we'll be sharing some great best practices to make them a little bit more interesting and better for you so you get more out of it. We will see you next week. Thank you so much.
Fire up your Friday
Fired Up Friday.
with Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
I am Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
Over the next hour of this Master Connection series, we will take a deep dive into the different ways to connect and network effectively.
See us and hear us right now. So LinkedIn, we are on here. We're getting ready.
Hear from experts along with Steve Spiro, who went from being shy and introverted to the Master Connector.